Okay, welcome guys. Cool. So we're going to get started. If you have any questions, pop them in the chat and we'll get to them at the end. I'm going to start sharing my screen. Okay, share. Okay, so you should be able to see my screen. So yes, welcome. My name is Shireen Freeman. I live near Greyton in the Overberg. And when I moved here 5 years ago, I was involved with domestic and farm animal rescue. And I became a wildlife first responder quite by accident because my community started bringing me injured or orphaned wildlife that they had found. And I soon realized that there was absolutely nowhere in the Overberg for me to take any of these animals. And, I found a few permitted centers in Cape Town, but they only dealt with a very small number of animals, and it's a very long way to travel. So my search led me to discover Wildlife Rescue South Africa, and I got in touch with Michelle Watson, who founded Wildlife Rescue South Africa. And to my absolute delight, I realized that she had just moved an hour away from me in Pringle Bay. Michelle's actually on the course with us today on this webinar. So for the past 2.5 years, Michelle has worked very diligently with the Kugelberg Biosphere to create the Kugelberg Biosphere Wildlife Rescue and Training Center. And I went on her wildlife rehabilitation course and a number of advanced courses since then. And I'm now an active first responder for the center, and I'll soon be one of their satellite shoebox rehab centers once I'm permitted. So that's just about me. I'm currently doing a course with Bats Without Borders, and this webinar is actually an assignment that I have to do. We're learning all about bats and, how to ID them, but most importantly, how to start a community bat group and educate our community members about the importance of bats. And so, yes, I'm very grateful that you've decided to join me here this evening. So during this webinar, we're going to have a look at who bats are, where they come from, the diversity of the bats we have here in South Africa. We're going to look at what they eat, how they hunt, how they help us and our environment, and most importantly, how we can help them. And throughout this webinar, I've tried to share as many fun and fascinating facts as I possibly can. So the oldest complete skeleton of bats, dating back to around 52 million years ago, were found in the Green River Formation in southwestern Wyoming in the US. Back then, they were already adept at flying and even believed to be using echolocation. Bats are from the order Chiroptera, which is directly translated from the Greek words meaning hand and wing. After rodents, bats are the largest order of animals, making up about 20% of mammals. Bats' wings evolved from their forelimbs, with their fingers becoming the spines on their wings. And if we were to do that and you held your arm out, your fingers would actually reach nearly all the way down to your feet. So it's quite fascinating how bats have evolved to fly. So I know it's quite early on in the game here, but let's do a quick pop quiz. So if you had to look at the following animals, you've got whales, pumas, and cows, and flying squirrels. If you had to guess which one of these were least closely related to bats, what would you say? If you were me, like I did at first, I would say, well, obviously it's bats, pumas, and cows and whales, cows, pumas, and whales. But the truth is, it's actually flying squirrels who are the least related to bats. So I'm sure we can all relate to the idea of like odd relationships with distant relatives. Like there's always that one weird uncle in the family, right? But this quiz is exploring evolutionary relationships, not kin relationships like aunts and cousins. Evolutionary relationships are defined by which types of animals share ancestors that lived millions of years ago. So, in fact, our whales, pumas, and cows are all part of the group of the animals thought to make up bats' closest ancient living relatives. And I found that really fascinating. So bats, we can find them all over the world and on every continent except in the Arctic. And according to the Bat Conservation Trust, the tropics have the biggest variety of bat species, with Indonesia having around 175 species, which is about 10 times the number of species found in the UK, for example. Central and South America are thought to be the home to almost 1/3 of the world's bat species. So the largest bat that we know of is the giant golden-crowned flying fox, aka the golden-capped fruit bat. And I might butcher this, but their scientific name is Asterodon jupitus. So these are, of course, fruit-eating bats, and they are endemic to the Philippines. And these guys boast a wingspan of over 1.5 meters, and they can weigh up to 1.5 kilograms. On the other hand, we have the smallest bat, very sweetly known as the bumblebee bat or the kitty's hognose bat. I'm not even going to try and pronounce their scientific name, but you can see it on the screen if you feel like giving it a go. These little guys measure between 29 and 33 millimeters, and they weigh only around 2 grams. And they are found in the limestone caves along rivers in western Thailand and southeastern Myanmar. Oh, sorry, I'm doing the wrong video here. Here we go. I don't know why it's skipping. So the largest bat colony in the world is found in Bracken Cave near San Antonio, Texas. This cave is home to millions of Mexican free-tailed bats, with estimates ranging in the numbers from 15 to 20 million. Every year, these Mexican free-tailed bats migrate to Texas for their breeding season, which generally begins in late February or early March, when pregnant females return to the cave after overwintering in Mexico and Central America. These bats then give birth to single pups in mid-June, nearly doubling the cave's population. Every evening, they make 2 full rotations around the cave, which forms a batnado, before they head out to fly sometimes over 100 kilometers to feast on agricultural pests. These little Mexican free-tailed bats are also thought to be the fastest bats, as they can reach speeds of up to 160 kilometers per hour. Then the Kasanka bat migration in Zambia is the world's largest mammal migration by number, with around 8 to 10 million straw-colored fruit bats migrating there every year between October and December. They descend into a small patch of evergreen swamp forest inside the Kasanka National Park in northern Zambia, where they feast on fruit. So globally, we know of around 1,460 plus bat species, but this number is always changing and growing as new research emerges. So sometimes, for example, we discover new species, or we learn things that are new about species that we already know, which puts them then into a different subcategory. In Africa, we have recorded 250 plus bat species. And some areas such as Central Africa are predicted to have many undiscovered species. And bats are some of the most under-researched creatures because they can live in quite remote places. And of course, they're nocturnal, so they're not the easiest creatures to research. We know of around 130 plus bat species in Southern Africa. And when we talk about Southern Africa, we are generally referring to 12 countries in the southern part of Africa. So these countries include Botswana, Lesotho, Malawi, Mozambique, Namibia, South Africa, Eswatini, which was formerly Swaziland, Zambia, and Zimbabwe. Then in South Africa, we have recorded around 70 species of bats. Bat diversity in Southern Africa is wide and unique. So the 130 species that we know of fall into 11 taxonomic families or groups of related species. Most of these eat insects, while some larger ones feed on fruit and nectar. And as you can see, they are all very diverse in their shapes and sizes and appearance. And I personally think even the ugly ones are quite cute. So last night, I had a really good chat with Lorraine, who founded the Cape Bat Group, because I was having quite a lot of difficulty looking online and Google to find exactly what were the common bats here in the Cape. So Lorraine very graciously gave me a lot of information with trusted, research. And these are just some of the common bats that we can find in the Cape. First, we have the Cape horseshoe bat, which you can see on his little face. He's got that like horseshoe nose leaf. These guys eat mainly beetles and moths, and they typically roost in large colonies, but also in smaller groups and even on their own. Their roosts are usually in cave ceilings or on walls where they can hang freely. Then, as their name suggests, the Cape serotine bat are very common in the Cape. Their diet primarily consists of beetles, moths, and various other flying insects. They commonly roost under the bark of trees, the base of aloe leaves, and even in the roofs of houses. These guys also readily occupy bat boxes. Then we've got the Egyptian rosette bat, and these are medium-sized fruit bats. They roost in large colonies and have been found in caves on Table Mountain and in Wynberg Ridge. Their diet consists mainly of fruits, but sometimes they also consume pollen, flowers, leaves, and even insects. Then we've got the Jeffroy's bat, horseshoe bat. He is also an insect eater, and he likes to feast mainly on moths, spiders, and flies. These guys seek out roosting locations with a consistent temperature and humidity, which are often found in caves and underground structures. In some areas, they form colonies up to 10,000 individuals, which have been found in the Western and Eastern Cape. The Natal long-fingered bat is a small insectivorous bat. These bats are known for their migratory behavior. They can be found in small groups or in colonies exceeding 200,000 individuals, as seen in the De Hoop Nature Reserve's Guano Cave in the Western Cape. Their diet primarily consists of insects, but they are believed to occasionally prey on fish as well. And lastly, but not least, we've got the Egyptian free-tailed bat. And these are relatively small bats, with males being smaller than the females. Their diet is primarily insects, including beetles, moths, and flies, but they've also been known to go after wasps, spiders, winged termites, and caterpillars. They roost in a variety of places, favoring like taller structures like church roofs, and they appear to prefer crevices in exposed cliff faces. And while these guys can form large colonies, they are typically found in groups of about a dozen or so. And then I also chatted to my Batty mentors from KZN at the Bat Interest Group of KZN. And here are some of the bats that are most commonly found by the public, generally around the KZN area. Again, we see our little Cape serotine bat. We also get the little free-tailed bat, which is a small bat. And their diet consists primarily of insects like beetles and moths. And these guys roost in a variety of natural and man-made structures. Then we have our Wahlberg's epulated bats. These are fruit bats. They primarily feed on fruit, nectar, pollen, and occasionally flowers. And in some areas, they are known to pollinate the baobab tree because they feed on their nocturnal flowers. These guys roost in more open spaces, such as trees, palm fronds, leaf tents, and the eaves of tall buildings, and in dense foliage. So fruit bats generally tend to roost more in open spaces and trees. Then, as their name suggests, the yellow-bellied house bat has a distinctive yellow belly. Their diet primarily consists of insects, including beetles and moths, and they roost in sheltered locations like trees and buildings. Then we've got the Mauritian tomb bat, and these guys also eat moths, but will also consume flying termites and other insects. These guys are often found roosting under covering vegetation on the outer bark of trees or on the outer walls of buildings under the eaves of roofs. Females roost in small colonies, while the males generally roost singly and separate from the females. And then lastly, we've got the banana bat, and these bats are really small. They're quite tiny, measuring up to 77 millimeters in length and weighing around 4 grams. Their diet consists of soft-bodied insects such as gnats, mosquitoes, larvae, and they also eat caterpillars. They are known for their daytime roosting habits in the leaves of banana trees, specifically in the new rolled up terminal leaves and in between the leaves. They can also be found in other locations like strelitzia plants and thatched roofs. And this makes me want to go to KZN. So how long do bats live? So most mammals that are small have a very short lifespan, often like only between 1 to 3 years. But bats are the exception and have comparatively much longer lives. The record for the longest lived bat is 41 years, held by a Brandt's myotis bat from Siberia. According to Bat Conservation International, some fruit bats can live over 15 years and a few can live up to 30 years. But fruit bats are the larger bats. So it kind of, goes to that they have longer lifespans. But what's really surprising is how many smaller species of bats live long lives. And some examples of this are in the myotis family, like our hero here who lived to 41. And some of the other myotis species have been known to live between 30 and 35 years. But curiously, not all myotis species live extra long lives. The black myotis only lives for 7 years, while the fish-eating myotis lives around 10 years. And outside of the myotis family, the mid-sized Pallas mastiff bat only lives around 5.5 years, while the small common pipistrelle lives around 17 years. So, as you can see, bat longevity is quite a fascinating area of study. Bats are exceptional mothers. Most of them give birth to a single pup per breeding season, but there are species that give birth to more than one. Most smaller animals have shorter gestation periods, but again, we see the bats bucking the trend, and these guys have fairly longer pregnancies. Comparatively, bat babies are really big, and for some species, newborns can weigh up to 43% of the mother's body weight. So mother bats give birth upside down, licking and grooming their pups as they emerge and protecting them with their wings. Baby bats are born hairless and with their eyes closed, and then they crawl up to their mother's nipple, attach themselves, and begin to feed. In many species, females gather in large colonies to give birth. And for species that live in smaller groups, bat fathers also care for their young. And here's a little fun fact that bat mothers can find their babies among thousands and even millions of other babies by their unique voices and scents. So we've already discovered that bats eat a wide variety of different insects, and we also have our fruit and flower and pollen-eating bats. But some species will eat small frogs, fish, lizards, and even scorpions. And then, of course, we've all heard about the infamous vampire bats, but actually, in reality, there are only 3 species of vampire bats, and all of these are found in the Americas, ranging from Mexico down to Central and South America. So when vampire bats feed on blood, it's typically from an animal, including farmed animals. They make a very small paper cut-like incision and drink a very little amount at a time, up to like a teaspoon or a tablespoon. These bats cannot go very long without feeding, and they are known to store and share blood with relatives if needed. And then here's a fun fact about vampire bats. The protein in vampire bat saliva contains a unique anticoagulant protein called draculin. So now you know where the word Dracula came from. So where do bats live? So we know that bats can live in trees or on the bark of trees. They're also found in caves and buildings, including under the floor with gaps like sprung floors. They're also known to roost behind signage or anywhere really that they can get into where there's a gap. They're also commonly found in culverts along the road. And they're also found in some odd places. Sometimes people find them roosting in their umbrellas on their patios that have been closed over winter, and the bats have gone in there to roost. So blind as a bat is a common saying that I'm sure we've all heard. Yet this statement is actually false. All bats can see. Even though some of them don't have such good vision, all of them can see. Their vision is less important than their other senses, such as their keen sense of hearing and their ability to echolocate. So echolocation is a sophisticated method used by bats to navigate and to hunt. And they do this by emitting high frequency sound pulses and listening for the echoes as they bounce off objects and prey around them. So this allows bats to see with sound, determining the size, shape, and texture of objects in their environment, even in complete darkness. Most of the sound waves, called ultrasound, that bats produce are at frequencies beyond human hearing. These sound waves are emitted through the bat's mouth and their nose. So different bat species have different unique calls, which allows bat enthusiasts to record their calls and identify which species they are. So bats don't only use sound to navigate and hunt, they also communicate with each other, most notably sharing information about food sources and warning about danger. And during my research, I found a very interesting article from the Smithsonian magazine online called Researchers Translate Bat Talk, and it turns out they argue a lot. Neuroecologist Yossi Yovel and his colleagues recorded a group of 22 Egyptian fruit bats for 75 days. Using a modified machine learning algorithm originally designed for recognizing human voices, they fed 15,000 calls into the software. They then analyzed the corresponding video to see if they could match the calls to certain activities or behaviors. They were able to classify 60% of the calls into 4 different categories. One of the call types indicates the bats were arguing about food. Another suggested that there was a dispute about their position within the sleeping cluster. A third call was reserved for males making unwanted mating advances. And the fourth happens when a bat argues with another bat for sitting too close. So in fact, the bats make slightly different versions of the calls when speaking to different individuals within the group. Similar to humans using a different tone of voice when addressing different people. And besides humans, only dolphins and a handful of other species are known to address individuals rather than making broad communication sounds. So this research appears in the journal Scientific Reports, and I've linked it there at the bottom of the slide. So if you want to check it out, it's quite interesting. So some bats have really elaborate nose flaps called nose leaves, and these help with echolocation by focusing and shaping the emitted sound waves. So these nose leaves can resonate with certain frequencies, allowing the bats to create different sound beams for different tasks, like hunting prey and navigating obstacles. They also protect the ears from outbound signals and improve sensitivity of returning echoes. Some bats also have very large ears, which amplify sounds, such as the fluttering of insect wings, and some are also known to hunt on the ground using their keen sense of hearing. But not all bats echolocate. Fruit bats, also known as megabats, are the only bats that don't rely on echolocation. Instead, they navigate and hunt using their keen eyesight and their sense of smell. However, research suggests that even within the fruit bat family, there are certain species that may have a limited form of echolocation. So I'm going to share some really cool little videos with you now. So that was a slow motion video, but in reality, all of that happens in like a fraction of a second.
Otonicterus, the desert long-eared bat, is on the hunt. Most bats catch flying insects on the wing, but there are so few of these in the desert that this bat must do things differently. It has to hunt on the ground. But what really sets it apart is what it's hunting. A deathstalker scorpion. The venom of this species is potent enough to kill a human. Tackling it seems madness for a bat weighing just half an ounce. In the pitch black, both predator and prey are effectively blind. But the scorpion has one advantage. He can sense the approach of the bat through vibrations in the sand. Otonicteris must rely entirely on its hearing. If the scorpion doesn't move, it won't know it's there. The battle is on. Armed with crushing pincers and a sting loaded with venom, this scorpion is a dangerous opponent. A direct strike on the head. Is it all over? Not for this bat. Otonicteris clearly has some immunity to the venom, but repeated stings must still be extraordinarily painful. And if the bat is not to go hungry, it must catch another 3 scorpions before sunrise.
So how do bats help us? They are beneficial to both humans and the environment. So for humans, bats help reduce crop damage and the need for pesticides by consuming insects that commonly feast on and sometimes destroy crops. A 2015 study on macadamia orchards here in South Africa revealed that bat predation of stink bugs resulted in the avoidance of up to 45 million rand in pesticide costs. The same study indicated that farmers could save as much as 76,300 rand per hectare in reduced nut damage due to bats' pest control. Bats are also known to consume other agricultural pests here in South Africa, such as the Aldana moth, who primarily destroy sugarcane crops, but they can also infest maize, sorghum, and other crops. Bats are estimated to consume 30 tons of Aldana moths per year, and this is just with a single colony. Additionally, some bats are seed distributors, contributing to reforestation, and some bats are pollinators of important plants, including those used in the food industry and the alcohol industry, like the agave plant, which gives us tequila. So next time you drink a shot of a tequila, you can say thanks to a bat. So here are some of the plants that benefit from pest control by bats. They include beets, citrus, corn, rice, strawberries, tomatoes, cotton, pecans, peppers, walnuts, and most importantly, coffee and chocolate. And some of the plants that bats commonly pollinate include some bananas, avocado, agave, guava, coconut, and the durian fruit. So our fruit-eating bats typically live in tropical and subtropical areas, and they often help with seed dispersal by eating the fruit and distributing the seeds, either by pooping them out or spitting them out. And some of these seeds include figs, almonds, papaya, mango, cashews, and again, agave. So there are many common threats that bats experience, and these include hunting from humans for sport and meat, as well as from domestic cats. In fact, cats are in urban areas one of the biggest threats to bats. They also are threatened by habitat loss, climate change, and urban development, including wind turbines and increasing light pollution. They're also threatened by the use of pesticides, both in farms and in our homes. And then another big threat to bats is persecution from harmful myths and superstitions and fear. So let's bust some of the fears around bats. So one of the most common misconceptions is that all or even most bats carry rabies. In a 2011 study at the University of Calgary, they found that less than 1% of bats actually carry rabies. And while it is true that bats are carriers of certain viruses, and we do need to be careful when handling them, this actually applies to handling any and all wildlife across the board. We also need to realize the value in supporting the scientists who are studying bats and learning how they do not succumb to these viruses so that their research can benefit humans. By studying the mechanisms of bat immune responses, researchers are learning to identify new ways to modulate the human immune system to better fight off viral infections. And then, of course, there's the fear that bats equal bad luck. And this is actually just simply not true. But once people understand the important role of bats, it's much easier for them to see them as friends and not foe. And that's why education is so important. Bats need friends. They need each other and they need us. So how can we help bats? The easiest and most immediate thing we can do is share our knowledge and spread awareness around the importance of bats within our own communities. We can also contribute to bat research by adding any sightings to our iNaturalist, and this will help us learn to identify our local bats as well. We can also support our local and wider bat interest groups. A big thing we can do is also keep our cats indoors, especially at night. And then if you find an injured or grounded bat, you can call a permitted bat rehabilitator. So here in the Western Cape, Kogelberg Biosphere Wildlife Rescue and Training Centre are able to assist. In KZN, the bat interest group are able to assist. And if you need, there's also a bat group in Gauteng. And if you need any advice, you're welcome to contact myself and I'll put you in touch with Michelle, who will let you know who the people are in your area. The other thing we can do for bats is to create a bat-friendly garden, and we can also put up bat boxes. So some of the bat groups I want to introduce you to, I'm learning about more each day, but these are some of the ones that have really helped me. The Bat Interest Group of KZN, these guys offer talks and courses. They advise homeowners on how to deal with bats on their properties. They help in the monitoring of bat roosts and scientific surveys. And they also work with rehabilitation of injured bats. Then we've also got the Cape Bat Group, and they are committed to promoting harmonious coexistence between bats and humans. They offer educational outreach initiatives and community engagement opportunities as well. The UK bat-based NPO, the Bat Conservation Trust, they have some really cool articles on their website and on their socials. And then Bat Conservation International also have an amazing library of articles on their website, and they also have live cams and videos. And then last but not least, Bats Without Borders. Again, I'm doing the course with them at the moment. They do a lot of work all over Southern Africa with research and community engagement, and they've got an educational program called Classrooms Without Walls. They're really doing a lot for our bats and for research in Southern Africa. They also have a Winged Wednesday webinar, which is free, which you can join, where they interview and chat with guest experts around bats. So if you're wanting to create a bat-friendly garden, here are some things that you can do. It should go without say, but don't use pesticides. Let the bats control the pests for you. You can provide a clean source of water for bats. You can keep your outdoor lights low, and you can plant native species. And if you want to install a bat box, you need to get to know which species live in your area. For example, fruit bats won't use a bat box. So it's good to know if the bats in your area will actually use your bat box. You can reach an expert to help you choose the right location for the bats. And most importantly, if you're choosing a bat box, make sure that they've used non-toxic treatments in the wood. And then give them time to move in. It doesn't always happen straight away. But yeah, sometimes it can take a little bit of time for them to move in. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to my talk about bats. And for being concerned about bats in your neighborhood. If you'd like more information about your local bat groups or what to do if you find an injured or grounded bat, please feel free to get in touch with me. You can reach me via my website, gracevalleyhaven.co.za.